What's up, guys? Micheal Williams, aka TheSwolefessor, education on health and social well-being. I'm here with my client, my boy, Micheal Seay, also known as Micheal Seay, also known as Micheal Seay. And today we're going to be doing a bench tutorial for you guys. After I released that squat video, I want to say like 2 or 3 weeks ago, going over like how I set up for the squat, the different cues. A lot of you gave me a lot of positive feedback on that. A lot of you sent me a lot of videos on Instagram and my email showing you applying those cues and how it's helped you. And you guys were wondering if we do something similar for the bench press. Keep in mind, I've done kind of like a bench setup tutorial video before from like a year ago, so I'll have that link in the description down below. But today we kind of want to talk about like what we've done by kind of like combining what my style used to be like, what Michael's style used to be like, to kind of like how we bench now, what cues we focus on. For those of you who don't know, well, Micheal here is easily the strongest bencher in the 74 kg weight class, like undeniably so, and just has a very, very strong bench overall. The dude benches in the mid-4s. What's your best bench in comp, and then your best bench just like period in training?
My best in comp is 198 kilos, which is 436 pounds or 435, whatever. And my best in the gym is 205 kilos, which is 452 pounds.
So the dude weighs like, you know, competes at 163 pounds, walks around like, you know, 168. You're walking around like 170 right now.
Yeah,
and he benches in the mid-4s. So now keep in mind, y'all see that your boy's bench has been blowing up. I ain't quite as strong as Michael, but you know, we out here benching 365. We're doing good things. We're not sitting here saying that any of these cues are going to suddenly like blow your bench up like crazy, but it's all about efficient movement. If you can get your technique consistent, if you can keep it efficient, then building becomes that much more easier. If you're someone where you're constantly having to change your technique, or you're changing your grip width, you're changing your style, your setup, then you can't be consistent. But when you get consistent technique down from there, it's just adequate programming and then getting bigger. That's the biggest thing. Like I can honestly say, since Michael's been under me like the past like year or so now almost, the biggest thing that we have done, aside from all the little technical stuff and some stuff that's just kind of individualized to his programming, but the one thing that he does that you all can take away is the man's gotten bigger. He's definitely more jacked than before we started working together, because he's been on top of his accessory movements. And that's the biggest thing, guys. You get to a point where these little deviations in your technique are only going to add so much weight to the bar. It's one thing if your technique is trash, but outside of that, you just got to get bigger. If you want to get stronger, you got to get bigger. Even if you're trying to stay in the same weight class. Like at one point, Michael, where were you walking around at when you first started powerlifting? Like,
probably barely 160, like 160, 161, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and now he's walking around 170 pounds, 10% body fat. I'm not telling you guys to be 10%. You know what, just for context, I'm going to put in the description down below the video we did when we got our Dexa scans and like the importance of body composition for powerlifting. I don't want y'all thinking you have to be 10% body fat to powerlift, but the point is, he's clearly put on more muscle mass, not just unnecessary fat, but more mass, and that's obviously helped with his bench a lot. But anyway, that's enough of the intro. Let's get into the tutorial. All right, guys, so I'm about to kind of take you through the general setup, and then as we go, Michael's going to give you guys some cues of like kind of what we're thinking about when we're doing this. So beforehand, if you guys can recall, my grip width used to be pinky on the ring. I've tried all kinds of grip widths, and all of last year, the closest the widest ever was pinky on the ring, and at some points I was even like closer inside. I'm now at max grip just because I've got my scapular positioning efficient up to where I can like maintain the max grip without any pain on my shoulders or anything like that. But where your grip width is going to be is completely based upon you and what you feel is most comfortable for you. But before we get into that, the main thing that I want to go over that we've changed, and this is something that I started implementing because Michael did before. It was kind of this thing where I was very much focused on tension, right? I'm trying to get my body as tight as possible, and Michael was kind of focused on kind of like just building a very big arch. So for me, the way I used to bench would pretty much be, I'm trying to get my legs as far behind me as I can, because what it does is it makes me feel like I'm really, really tight, right? And even though I'm in this position and I feel really tight, there's a difference between kind of what I call like pseudo tightness, where you're kind of forcing your body into these positions where you're gonna feel tight, versus actually creating tension. So what we've done, which we got more from Michael, is I now start with my feet more forward. And the reason I do this is because I can actually just get better leg drive by pushing like into the ground and almost feeling like I'm pushing in and away from myself. So, you know, I get my feet planted, I get the big toe planted, and what it allows me to do is once I set my grip, I can actually use my feet being more forward to push myself into a better position. So that's why it's a lot easier for me to do that with my feet here than if I try to have my feet back here. If I try to have my feet back here, I can only push myself into position so much without it feeling like my lower back's going to cramp up. Whereas with my feet more forward, like so, I can really push myself into position a lot better. So then the next thing that we kind of want to think about as we're doing that is where our actual grip width is going to be. So you can come closer. in terms of like how we set the grip. So like I said, where your grip is gonna be is based upon you. If you're benching right here, that's cool. If you're pinky on the ring, index, middle finger, pointer, doesn't matter. For me, I'm max grip width, so I'm pointer finger on the ring, right? But what I do is before I even get started, I'm trying to wedge this bar as low into my palm as I can. I'm not holding it here. I'm not just holding it straight. I'm trying to wedge it low into the palm. So what I do is I kind of internally rotate my shoulders just a little bit, so that way I can really get it well wedged. And then after that, I get my full grip around it, get the grip tight. And then, while pushing myself up, I externally rotate. I'm already nice and retracted, and then I'm depressing my scapula as hard as I can. Now, the next thing is, if you guys notice my wrist, it's cocked back. My wrist isn't straight like this, it's cocked back. And the reason for that is this is a much stronger position for the wrist to be in, because force transfer is going right from the elbow into the palm where the bar's sitting, versus being like this, where it can be very unstable or even pushed forward. So that's kind of like the first things that we're thinking about is, okay, creating tension with the legs, getting that scapula set. Like I said, before I even go down, I like to be nice and retracted. Getting that grip set, so it's wedged nice into the palm, gripping it tightly, and then I'm putting it all together by using the tension, pushing into my legs. I'm already retracted, I'm depressing as hard as I can, and you can see when I depress, because the bar will go from being back here to the front to the right. Depress, so scapula's down. And then I basically like a cue that a cue that I know Michael likes to use. I think I've even heard Noriega use this, like kind of like you're pushing your neck into the bench essentially. So now that you guys kind of see the basic setup, I'm gonna let Michael kind of take you guys through what cues he's thinking about as he's doing it.
Okay, guys. So as Marcellus was saying, when I'm getting set up on the bench, I'm thinking about lengthening my neck as well as my lower body. And what this does is that helps you to create that active tension that he was talking about versus just kind of more passive pseudo tension. And so I'm already set up. He pretty much explained everything that I do when I'm setting up. And so before I unrack, I make sure that I'm pushing into the floor with my quads. And this also contributes to that tensioning.
Like if I were to feel his quads right now, guys, like you would think the dude's about to leg press. That's how hard he's pushing into the ground.
Yeah, because what I like to say is that bench it's a full body movement. It's not just an upper body movement.
Yep.
And that's because it's all about creating that tension, which is why there's a pretty clear difference between, say, Larson pressing versus actually benching.
Yep.
If you're benching properly, that is, if you're properly using your lower body, if you're properly tensioning. So anyway, I get ready to unrack. For me, I like to self-unrack personally. It depends on the person. But for me, I like to self-unrack. So making sure that everything's properly set, making sure my scapula is properly set and evenly distributed on the bench on both sides.
Yep.
And I like to take in a deep breath before I unrack, and then I like to use the force that I'm creating with my lower body to unrack the weight.
So you're basically using like your legs from the start to help you with the unrack.
Yeah. To kind of counterbalance against the weight on the bar, which this isn't really enough weight to do it, but
yeah,
you'll get pretty much what I'm saying. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah, it really pops right off.
So you'll see that as I unrack, I'm bringing the bar down towards the bottom of my sternum. And when I'm lowering my butt onto the bench, I'm not just gonna plop it on the bench.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slowly lower it to where my glutes and hamstrings are just barely touching the bench. And what this does is this helps even more with establishing that tension. And you'll see that pretty much nothing is moving. Everything is in place.
Nice and stable.
And I'm nice and stable, and I'm not moving anywhere. And so you'll see now I'm in a good position to start pressing. So when I'm pressing the weight, I'm pressing down towards the bottom of my sternum. And what I like to think about, the easiest way to create a more efficient bar pack is literally just lock out your triceps.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing that, you're gonna automatically get in as efficient of a position as you can versus thinking about, oh, I should push the bar up and back or whatever.
Yeah.
If you literally just lock your triceps out, you're gonna automatically do what's more efficient for you.
Yeah, and that's helped me a lot, guys, because before, when I had the closer grip, pushing up and back worked really well for me, but with the wider grip, for whatever reason, when I think about pushing up and back, I just feel kind of unstable. So instead, like I said with Michael Hughes, I kind of just think about like just pushing out almost, and the bar pad just kind of comes naturally. And mind you, that's kind of individual cue that we use. If you know you use the wider grip and you still think up and back and that works for you, that's fine. Once again, all of these are general cues. We're not saying you have to apply all of these. We're just kind of taking you through our setup and hoping that you guys kind of get something out of it. And then one more thing that I kind of wanted to mention in terms of him like setting the glutes down nice and slow, on top of the fact that it's keeping everything like more tension, it's also obviously like, you know, giving us a bigger, a shorter range of motion rather, because we have a bigger arch. But notice, at no point have we said anything about like forcing an arch with the lower back or trying to like, you know, get your lumbar to like to be more extended. Like the arch is pretty much just a byproduct of the setup. What we're focused on is creating overall tension. And through the position and through the tension, the arch becomes a byproduct versus the people where you kind of see them, actually, you know, this real quick, Michael, the people you see where they literally, they're not thinking about tension, they're just trying to get as arch as they can, and they're putting so much focus on this to where literally, like even doing this feels uncomfortable right now. Like I can feel my lower back cramping, and you can't maintain that. And that's the one thing that kind of Michael's kind of changed. Before, if you look at his old videos, like if you guys follow him on Instagram, which I'm sure I've had on screen at some point, you'll see that he actually had a bigger arch, but his technique wasn't as consistent. If he misgrouped even slightly, he couldn't grind through it. So now he has, like I said, we've kind of combined our styles. We've taken kind of my tensioning with his setup, and even though now he has a slightly like smaller arch, it's still pretty significant obviously, but even though it's slightly smaller, he can tension it better to where if he misgrooves it, he can drive through the rep. So now we're both about to work up to our top singles. I have a top single at RP6. Do you have the same thing, Michael?
Yeah,
like 5 or 6?
Yeah, single.
So we're about to work up to that so you guys can kind of like just see the setup in motion. All right, guys, hopping in for a voiceover during these clips of our warm-ups leading all the way up to our top sets. And as the clips are playing, I just want to take the time to tell you guys a few more cues and things that Michael and I are thinking about as we're actually doing the movement. We just took you through the setup. Now, during the movement itself, a few things that we're thinking about, first and foremost, is bar speed. So basically trying to have a faster eccentric to the chest. Now, mind you, you don't want to go so fast where you're losing any of that tension that you built, or you break down the position that you built, because that defeats the whole purpose of everything we just took you through with the setup. But in general, the faster you can get the bar to the chest, the more explosive it's going to be off the chest. A lot of people don't think that's the case because you're not doing a touch and go, but even when you're coming to a dead stop, if you load that kinetic energy faster, you're simply going to be more explosive off of the chest. So what we try to think about is making sure that we're squeezing that bar as tightly as possible the entire time from the moment that we unrack it, and that way we're maintaining that tension, and it's a lot easier to maintain that position even with a slightly faster eccentric. Now, the next thing is during that eccentric, right? Yeah, we're trying to get to the chest fast, but in order to help us maintain that position, we're not just thinking of, okay, bringing the bar to the chest, or just like, okay, we're lowering the arms. We're thinking about putting our mind into our scapula, and we're really trying to retract even harder on the way down, very similar to what you would do with like a pendlay row or a barbell row, which is why a pendlay row is such a good accessory movement for the bench press, because it's basically the exact same motion. So we're thinking about basically retracting on the way down, rowing the bar to our chest, and at the same time trying to push our chest towards the bar, so that way the chest stays nice and elevated. You guys are going to notice here on this clip specifically that after I unrack it, once I set my glutes down, I'm breathing really big into my chest. I'm trying to keep that chest as big and as high as possible, so that way as I'm coming down, there's no sinkage of the chest. My chest isn't caving in at all. Not to say that it doesn't work for those of you who are using the sink press technique, but for those of you where you're trying to keep all that tension and keep the chest as big as possible, thinking about that is going to help you out a lot. So yeah, we're retracting on the way down and we're pushing our chest towards the bar. As far as the leg drive, we aren't really thinking about trying to activate it more during the press, simply due to the nature of how we're setting up. Like we said, that constant leg drive and constant leg tension is already there. So long as we're continuing to push into the ground as hard as we can, which we're already doing from the point of unrack, the leg tension pretty much stays consistent for us. And once again, guys, this is just the way that we set up for our bench press. There are other ways to set up for the bench press. There's different techniques, different cues, and it's all about taking the time to find what positioning and what cues work best for you. But hopefully you guys were able to get something from seeing how Michael and I have set up for the bench press. This has been very beneficial for both of us as far as our overall progress. But once again, the key is consistency. Whatever technique you find works for you, be consistent with it and spend some time with it. Don't go back and forth, change your technique day in and day out. You have to take the time to experiment with something long enough to see if it feels good for you. And the same thing goes for even your grip width, whether you're max grip, close grip, whatever it may be. But yeah, that's pretty much all I want to go over during this voiceover, guys. Enjoy the last little bit of this video. So that is pretty much it. You guys saw us work up to our top set. You saw us each hit our first back down. We're gonna get through the rest of our back down work and then our accessories. This is a really easy week for Michael. He is at this point 8 weeks out from the Arnold, working his way up for the Grand Prix, trying to be the first ever 74 kg lifter to hit an 800 kg total. So if you guys are not already, highly suggest that you subscribe to his YouTube channel so you can follow his journey. It's going to be in the description box down below. Also subscribe to his Instagram, which will be on screen. If you already follow your boy on Instagram, what are you doing? Why are you watching the channel but not subscribing to the Instagram? No, I mean, y'all know I ain't tripping if you do. But
no, he is tripping.
Okay, yeah.
He is.
Yeah.
Follow him.
Yeah.
Right now.
Let him know.
Follow him.
But yeah, we're gonna get through our accessories, and then the rest of this week is gonna be a pretty chilled week. So might not be showing too much training wise. We'll definitely be keeping up with the informative content for you guys this coming week. But yeah, that's it for the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, go in the comment down below. Let me know what you did. If you're not, leave a comment down below. Let me know what I or Michael can do to get better. Like the video, share, subscribe. Keep it simple, specific, scientific. We'll catch y'all later.